Okay, so we're going to go over what we're going to be using to record the video, the process of the painting. So here I have a Canon 80D camera, which is on a sturdy tripod. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on, and we're going to go over some of the settings we need. So one of the reasons we're using a Canon camera and not a Nikon camera, which is what I usually use, this feature right here, which allows you to view the screen from behind. So you have this pop-out screen, so you can view it from behind like another camera where the screen is back here, but you could also rotate it so that you can be in front of the camera and actually see what the camera is recording. So there's a couple of features on here that you want to make sure that you have set up correctly. I'm going to go ahead and make sure, first of all, that I'm in video mode. You can see that this little red camera versus the white camera. So you got a video camera versus a still camera. You want to shoot in manual mode. So you can see at the top here, I've got this set to manual mode. What you want to do here is set your shutter speed to 1/60th of a second. So 1/60th of a second is 2 times the frame rate. The frame rate is 30 frames per second. So by setting up your camera, setting your camera to 1/60th of a second, as you can see down here at the bottom, is going to be 2 times the frame rate. I'm not sure how that math works, 2 times the frame rate, but this next number here is your aperture. Your aperture on your camera, you're going to be able to change, and what that's going to affect is, you can see how the image is getting darker. It's actually closing down the lens. So as I close down the lens to f9, these are measured in f-stops, you can see that the overall scene gets darker. And when I open it up, the lens is getting wider open, and you can see that I can go up to 4. The scene that you see in front of you gets brighter. The idea here is that you want to get the scene correctly exposed, but you also, what this number also affects is it affects something called depth of field, which is how blurry the background is. So what you should be seeing here is, if I'm focusing on the canvas and we stop this down, even though it's darker, you can see a little bit more of the Joker's face. He's a little bit more in focus. As I go this way, the scene gets brighter, and you can see that the Joker's face actually moves out of focus a little bit more. So depth of field is the degree of focus that you get into the distance, going into the distance. So we want to have that shutter speed at 60, 1/60th of a second, 2 times the frame rate of the video. We want to have your aperture depending on what you want, depending on your taste. Do you want to see everything further in the distance, or do you want it to focus more on this one plane, which in our case is the edge of our painting, and you want the background to be blurred? Okay. Now the other thing is, you want to keep this on manual. You want to have the top on manual mode, but you also, on your lens, need to have your lens on manual mode. Now this is a kit lens here, so this is the 1855 lens that the camera ships with, the 1855 lens, and then you can see here on the side you've got the AF and the MF and then the stabilizer. You want to keep this on manual focus. What you don't want to happen as you're shooting, especially if you're shooting interviews or something that is like this demo piece, you want to have the focus where you want it, and you want it to be locked down in that particular spot. So I'm still trying to get used to the Canon features. They're a little bit different. I've been used to using Nikon for so long. Okay, so the next thing that you want to do is, you'll notice that when I started to turn these items, there's this little meter down here. What we want to be trying to do here is we want to keep this meter in the middle. That means that it's exposing the scene correctly. Now if you choose to make a longer depth of field, so we stop down this lens, you can see what's happening is darkening. So it's showing you, oh, you know what, you're 2 stops below where you should be. You're 2 steps darker than what you should be. Now you might think, well, I'm kind of stuck then. I need to use this aperture of 4, and I have to have this blurry background, which, you know, you kind of want that feature. But if you didn't for some reason, what you're going to adjust next is called the ISO. And what the ISO number is, it simulates the speed of the film. And when we talk about speed of film in photography, we talk about its sensitivity to light. The higher this number goes, you can see the brighter the scene goes, because it's simulating a really highly sensitive film in your image sensor. So it's brightening the background, because it's like, oh, this is really sensitive to light, so it's taking in a lot, it's showing a lot of light. Now what you can do is stop this down. As you go this way, though, you might think, oh, I just bump this up and get a really bright one. The higher this number goes, the lesser quality the image is. You get it more pixelated. You get something called digital noise in there. So we're going to stop this down as low as we can and still maintain the quality of light that we're looking for. So that looks pretty good to me if we can get at 400. As a general rule, you don't really want to be shooting, you want this number to be as low as possible because that will give you the highest quality image. In order to get that number lower, what you could try to do is you could bring in more light. So the brighter lights that you have, you don't need that sensitivity to light because you have the light. Really, there are only three things in photography. There are three main things. The triangle of exposure, that's extremely important, and the same thing happens in video. And those are your ISO, which is your sensitivity to light, your shutter speed, which is the speed in which the shutter is opening and closing to capture an image. In video, it's actually staying open and capturing that image a different way. And the aperture, which is the opening of the lens. The lower that number is, the wider the lens is open. And as you make that number larger, the lens closes down and you're peeking through this little keyhole, which is the amount of light. So aperture controls the amount of light, shutter speed controls the time, and ISO sensitivity controls how sensitive the film or sensor is to light. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be filming with this. We tried filming with an iPhone, which it was fine. That's what I'm shooting this with right now. The problem was, in order to upload this, it was taking forever in order for the video to go up to my Dropbox account. So we're going to move forward with this setup. So I wanted to go over the settings that you want on the camera. And this is just going to capture the image. We haven't even talked about sound yet, which we're going to talk about sound in just a moment.
Thanks for watching. Like, there's like a little button that they put on the laptop or something, and then they say click it, and then you can never even miss a video.
That's if you subscribe.